welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. Ladies and gentlemen, we are through 8 rounds. We are a third of the way through the season. Holy crap, why does the footy season go so quickly? I don't know, but I absolutely love it. Joining me today as my co-host, another fellow Swans man. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry if this gets a little Swans heavy at times, but I got to talk to him. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to from the True Bloods podcast. It's Deebs. Deebs, great to see you again, sir.
G'day, Donny. Thanks for having us on again, mate. It's always a pleasure, and what a round to come on after the Swannies have just knocked over the flag favourites, put ourselves on top of the AFL ladder, mate. And it's good to it'll be good to talk the rest of the competition as well. But our boys are flying, mate.
Yeah, that for sure. That for sure. The Sydney Derby was fantastic, but the pseudo rivalry round through the AFL, which we'll discuss even a little bit more. I have a thought on this that I'd love to find out what you think about that. But just really quickly, I know, like I said, Swans with an impressive win in the wet, which I have to say was very, very good to watch that particular game. And it was at a decent time for me at 10:45. So I slept very, very well after that game for sure. But let's jump right into all of round eight. Like we said, some rivalry games, some absolutely fantastic footy. Just initial thoughts of everything that happened through round eight.
Yeah, look, it started off with the showdown over in Adelaide, and sort of nearly an upset result. The Crows have been, struggling throughout the year, Donny, but they sort of put it together over there, kick straight, unlike the Port Power, and yeah, managed to get the 4 points. Jake Saligo continues to dominate. It's really good to see him play some good footy. I was listening to one of the footy shows before, and it was interesting that Saligo didn't even start in the side. He was the emergency round one, but he's had some sort of start to the season.
Definitely, for sure. I'm with you on that. I go back and forth with a few Crows fans, and that was one of the biggest complaints they had is that some of their young stars like Rankin and Saligo were not starting in the middle. So it's good to see that change. Absolutely classic, an absolute classic between Collingwood and Carlton. Again, we'll break all these down here in a little bit, and some up and a huge upset that I think has got a few of my friends in a certain part of the western suburbs a little bit up in a tizzy today. I woke up to a nice back and forth between a couple of friends of mine that are huge Western Bulldogs fans that we can discuss that just a little bit later. So we'll go right into it. First game, as you said, is the showdown over in Adelaide again. I think an underrated rivalry in the AFL is the Crows get a 30-point win, but I think the biggest talking point, and I don't like to go into this, but I got to do the biggest talking point is as as Swans fans, we'll look at it like this: saying Errol Goulden has what happened to Connor Rosie is a little frustrating to see a player get tossed in after 6 days on a pinged hamstring that okay, I understand. During the week, he was running fine, everything like that. But I agree with that. Once fatigue sets in, it's very easy for a muscle to ping again. Was this a bad decision by Kenny Hinkley? Because for me, I think it's too big a risk for a player in only round eight.
Yeah, and look, I think Ken has just taken the hit for the club, really. It's not Ken's fault. It's Connor Rosie's fault, and it's the medical team's fault. It's sorry to bring it back to the Swans, but it's very similar to Sam Reid in the 2022 grand
Hmm.
final, right? Soft tissue injuries just don't recover like that. It's a couple weeks minimum for a hamstring. And look, it looked minor at the time too. But Connor Rosie, as the captain of the club, should have put his hand up and known he wasn't right. And the medical staff should never have ticked him off for that, in my opinion. So yeah, Kenny's taken the hit for the club as coaches do a lot of the time. But yeah, they just got it so wrong.
Yeah, 100% with you at this one. My only thing is this, and this is maybe just a little bit of me, is this is where I think Kenny could have, and again, hindsight's 2020 again, because I think he looks at it as this is a tough game. This is a game against your rivals. You want to be at your best. this is one of those where I think if Kenny had his chance to do over again, he would have went, is it worth the risk? Do we really need to do this? We're already missing a Lear. We're already missing so we already have some of the issues that we have injury wise. Charlie Dixon's again has been fighting things. Do you really risk it? You've got Butters, you've got Drew, you've got Horn Francis. I don't think it's worth the risk at round 8 personally, but that's just
Yeah.
me. Again, hindsight's 2020. Maybe he goes in that game and he doesn't hurt it again if he's sitting in the square at full forward instead of Jason Horn Francis going forward. So there's a ton of what ifs that I think is really hard to do. And plus, I don't want to take away from Adelaide. This was a lot more like Adelaide from last year. They're scoring. Isaac
Mm.
Rankin is looking every bit worth all of the financial backing that they put into him. I mean, you and I know Jordan Dawson was absolutely fantastic for us when he before he headed over to the Adelaide Crows. This is a Crows team. If they find their mojo, which they're starting to do, can be very, very dangerous going forward. So Port, like I said, they're licking their wounds on this one a little bit, and I agree with you. I think Kenny's throwing himself proverbially in front of the barrage where I think this is a little bit of he had a chance to, he didn't because he was told everything was fine. He visually thought everything was fine. Rosie and the medical staff have to kind of step in and save the player from themselves a little bit. And I don't think they did. And Kenny was that last net that they let go. So a little frustrating for the coach and me that he you gotta make that call. You gotta save the player from themselves a little bit. But unfortunately, the medical staff decided that it was worth the risk, and now he's going to be out even longer. So, could this bite the proverbial butt of the Port Adelaide our brass and the coaching staff on that one? We jump over to the Victorians' favorite favorite rivalry, Carlton, Collingwood. Here was the shot. Here was Carlton's opportunity to stamp themselves into that flag contenders spot. Fall just a little bit short as Nick Dacos strikes again with a 6 point win, 85-79. Fantastic to see these two teams getting up and about. But if you're Carlton, you're ruining misses, and Nick Dacos gets you again.
Yeah, look, you got to just put more time into Dacos, and he's it's probably as you say. I don't think it's the first time he's done it to Carlton, but yeah, look at Collingwood sort of starting to find their mojo. They matched the Blues in the middle, even with Mackay kicking 4, Owies kicking 3. They was just able to hit them offensively and just get out and score. When you don't have sort of Wiedering dominating for the Blues and their defense not setting up overly good and getting through, like Collingwood's had the 25 scoring shots. It just shows that they really rely heavily on Jacob Wiedering, and with him sort of battling a little bit on the weekend. It's just it's interesting to see how easy, not easy that Collingwood scored, but they were able to put a decent score on them. That's for sure.
Definitely for sure on that one. And I agree with you. If I'm the competition, you're a little worried because you didn't want Carlton to find what they've kind of lost a little bit. Like it was they were the comeback kids. They were the team that were never out of everything. And for them to do it again, I mean, Carlton blitzed them early. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
uh-oh. I mean, were we going to see Carlton kind of put the proverbial nail in Collingwood when it comes to top 4 opportunities, or even this early in the season? And Collingwood just kind of they steadied the ship at quarter time and then just kept chipping away like almost like an ice sculpture artist. Like they just kept finding little pieces to take away. And then finally they struck at just the right time again. Nick Dacos, magnificent player. I mean, I can't be mad at the kid. The kid is fantastic. Do I think he's everything that everybody says? I honestly don't think so. I think he needs to be that halfback flanker, that wing player. I don't like him in the guts very much because I don't think he's a contested ball winner personally.
Mm.
I think he benefits from guys like Tommy Mitchell and Jordan DeGoey and lets him stay in space and kind of stay away from getting hit because I think because he isn't the biggest guy in the world, the more hits he takes, I think it actually slows him down. I think the more that he's on his feet, moving in space, using his elusiveness, I think is actually better for him. So I honestly I like him off the halfback line much more than I like him through the mids. So it'll be interesting to see how they deploy him as the year goes on. So we'll go to the game that I think this is one I will smile. This may take a little bit longer than in the podcast that I want, but we got to talk about it. And that's the Sydney Derby. We're not going to talk about the Battle of the Bridge. I don't like that one. I know some of my Sydney faithful are still trying to figure out what bridge they're talking about, which always makes me chuckle whenever I listen to that one. But Sydney get the win in not the greatest weather conditions, but a solid win over a team that, like I said, was the flag fancy for these first 7 rounds. And the Swans get a nice little win at home by 29, 98-69. I believe you were at the game, sir, since you told me off mic that you just got back from Sydney. How good was the game? And did you run for cover when that blanket of rain hit the SCG there in the second quarter?
Yeah, look, it was it didn't start off great my weekend, mate. I slept through my alarm. Well, my alarm didn't go off on Saturday morning and I missed my flight.
Uh-oh.
So I had to book another flight on the way. So that was the first L I took. And then my barber cancelled the night before as well. So that was the second L. So I was just waiting for the third one to come, but it never eventuated, Donny. We had a win with the rain. And we were on the bottom level, and but we were that far back on level one that we'll cover just covered by the roof, which is great. So yes, stayed dry, which was awesome. But yeah, the wins just kept coming. We were great all day. GWS started really fast. They sort of just kept peppering us, and I think their midfield was sort of up on top in that first quarter, first half of that second quarter. But when the rain set in, that's when the game sort of changed. And it's a really good thing to see from a Swannies perspective is being able to adapt to the conditions and just play the conditions a lot better than GWS did. And just really good that we could nut it out in the middle with some contested footy as well. I think that's what everyone sort of goes to our knock is, oh, you can't do the contested footy thing, but that was a slog out there and we outslogged them. And yeah, just that the midfield dominated all day.
Yeah, it was very fascinating to watch that game because I agree with you. It was very much an arm wrestle early. And I gotta say, Brody Grundy, you absolute beauty. He's not dominating the ruck battles. He's not absolutely just toweling up his opponent, but he's getting the job done when he needs to. And he's doing the little things, tackling. I mean, I got to admit, he looked like an absolute warrior at the end of the game with that absolute wicked shiner underneath his,
Good shot.
believe it's his left, I believe it's his right eye. So I'm hoping that's all good, that he doesn't have any issues when it comes to his visuals. Hopefully that dies down before this week's game. But it was fascinating. The rain set in, and it was like you would think Sydney's game would be hurt, be
Affected.
detriment. It would be detrimental, affected exactly because of their short kicking game, and if they wanted to, they can go fast. But it was like GWS's handball game went absolutely to heck because of it, because quick handballs in the rain don't work. Where at least you could somewhat still get your short kicking game, but you have to get uncontested marks. So it was fascinating that GWS did not really seem to adjust. And I agree with what one person said is there was something off about GWS going forward. They were a little bit after that first quarter, they could not find it. It was also interesting to see how Sydney did really well. I love seeing Dane Rampy come back. I think he really if Dane Rampy wasn't in this game, I'm not sure if the Swans win it, especially if T-Mac goes down with the concussion that he did, unfortunately. And again, my thoughts with him, hopefully it's a speedy recovery. It's always scary when you see Tommy Mack go down with any kind of thing like that, especially with the history that him and Patty have. But I gotta say, Dane Rampy was amazing coming back. I was a little worried coming back in the wet with a hamstring. It was like, please don't ping it again. Please don't ping it again. Like every time he had to like do a sprint, I was silently going, please no, please no. But it was great to see him come back. Nick Blakey was a little bit quieter, but I think that's also because he had to kind of take over that secondary key defender role, which he didn't. He did actually really well. Normally you're a little worried with how slight the Liz is, but I think he did very, very well. This was the game I absolutely loved. James E. Jordan, there wasn't a single quote unquote passenger in this game. Like everybody did something well. Wilbur kicking four, that was magnificent. Love seeing that. Oflo playing not the greatest game, but he did what he did when he needed to. Everybody fantastic. Isaac Heaney continuing to make the Sun jealous with how in fuego his season has been. Chatty Warner showing his brilliance like he did in the 2022 season. So I this was a fantastic game. Was this the Giants' best game? Absolutely not. It was not. Um, Again, they did not just adjust to the conditions as well, but I still think this is a really good GWS team. The Tom Green injury, we'll have to see how this affects GWS going forward. Unfortunately, I do kind of agree with some of the people on the broadcast. It kind of exposed GWS's lack of change when it comes to it because he is such that key cog of getting the ball out of the middle to their speed. So it'll be fascinating to see how they adjust going forward. So that's a fun one. But I'm glad you stayed dry. It was funny watching all of the people on the lower section throw their ponchos on and slowly proceed backwards to get under cover. Maybe chuckle a little bit again. I know not everybody wants to get wet while watching the footy, but it was made me chuckle a little bit watching the game because you could literally see a wave of people pushing back to get under cover.
Yeah, no, really lucky to stay dry. But yeah, you touched on Rampy. He makes all the difference to us. Just that our organization behind the ball was awesome, and I think because our pressure was so good, GWS just didn't have those clean entries, and we were just sitting one behind the ball all day, and they never manned it up either. So they were just slow. And when they're
Mhm.
in the first after sort of quarter time, they also had one behind the ball, but we manned that up straight away, which we have been slow to do in the past, but we reacted really well. And I think Chad Warner was the difference. His ability to burst from contest and separate, and even the fend off, Donny, it's to get that meter separation from someone to get that clean handball out. It's underestimated, and he's having an underestimated season, Chad. You know, it's all about Heaney, it's all about Goulden, but the Chad's killing it too.
Mhm.
We talk about it on our podcast. Having so many guys in good form makes such a difference because if you tag one of them, someone else is going to step up. And that's probably an error I think GWS made as well, not trying to tag one of those three. But you know, we just got over the top of them and outbullied them. Really, it was a really solid performance.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And one last one. I gotta say it just because he's been unheralded for this team, but I think it has been magnificent that the Swans didn't go out and get a big body defender, and that's Lewis Melican. I mean,
Oh,
Melly was fantastic. Like he was absolutely fantastic in this game. It was one of those things after what he did against Carlton in the finals last year. I kept saying to a few people online, I kept saying, we don't need another big body defender. We don't need another big body defender. We have Louis. Louis can do it. He can do it. He's shown he can. He couldn't get his body right. If he can keep his body right, he is a great second tall defender. He does really, really well. He's unassuming. He's very good with the ball in hand. So I got to give Lewis Mellick and his props. He did fantastic in this game. After Tommy went down, Louis was literally he took over that number one fullback, tall defender, key defender spot, and he did magnificently. It'll be interesting to see how he handles going forward, getting a little bit more responsibility now with Tommy being out. But man, I gotta give him his plaudits. Lewis Melican was fantastic in this game. Loved watching him succeed for sure. So we'll get off Swan Central a little bit. We'll move on back down to Marvel Stadium as the Saints get their easy beat win as they knock off North by 38, 103-65. As frustrating as it is to watch North, I just don't know what to say. Like I sit here every week watching this North team, and I hate saying it, but I have a hard time seeing them get a win. If I'm the Saints, you get the win. Is it as impressive as you probably should have win? Probably not, but you get the win, you chalk up 4 points and you move on. If you're North, you hopefully see some things. Georgia Wardlaw playing well. It was very interesting. The talk almost the entire broadcast was Jimmy Webster, Jai Simpkin. Is there going to be something? There was a little spicy moment there for a bit, but
Yeah.
in all, it was relatively calm. But like, I really don't know what to say about this game. I mean, it kind of went exactly the way I kind of thought it was. The Saints just too good. North still need to figure something out, and I'm not sure what they're going to figure out with the list that they have.
Yeah, I think that they've just made too many errors for too many years, North. And it's even like, we've seen what Dylan Stevens did for us, in 4 years. And I just don't think that's the player that North should have gone and recruited. And we've seen it. He's not even in the side now. And
Hmm.
it's just like, and Dylan Stevens isn't a bad player either, right? But
Hmm.
he needs to go into, a side that's got an up and going midfield and not having to worry about, earning your own ball as such. And they've just got too many players out of form too, North. We spoke about it the other day. It's like you've got Simpkin out of form, you got Davies Uniacke out of form. It's with your two best players playing average footy, they're going to struggle. And Zach Fisher's playing some good footy. Colby McKercher looks like he's going to be a player. Sheasel as well, but bar those guys, it's you just can't see the light yet with North, and it's bloody tough. Like there's a lot of loyal North supporters out there, and it's hats off to them. I don't know how I would be dealing with it. The Swannies were average for a couple of years, and that was tough enough. But
Hmm.
you could always see the light, but you can't see the light with this, and it's tough out there. It's tough.
Yeah, it's very, it's just they've I really gotta go back to the origins of the year that they cut Boomer Harvey, Petrie, Del Santo, and I think there was one other one. And ever since that harsh cut,
Yep.
they just have not ever figured it out. A combination of firing coaches and moving on within 2 years. There's been so much upheaval that I don't think they've really ever let, like, I mean, to use the analogy, they've never let roots set in by anybody that's been in the job. And I think that's the frustrating part for me is that I understand that fans want wins. Okay. I understand that. I do not begrudge fans wanting wins. What I begrudge is that when they get so quick to judge that they're going to fire a coach after only 2 years, that's not enough time to get your system fully through every single kid in the list. It's just not. So when you fire coach after coach after coach, it just doesn't work. Like you're literally you're ripping up the proverbial sod and throwing a new one down and watering it and going, well, in 2 years, if you're not perfectly growing fantastic grass, rip it up, do it again. It's just they've never allowed it to settle and to actually start to grow. And I agree with you. You've got the great talent through the midfield, but their issues aren't the midfield. Their issues are their backs because Aiden Core has been a monumental fail. I still don't see what great he brings to this side. And after Griffin Logue is hurt for the season, not going to be out there, you lost Ben McKay to Essendon, which again, I don't begrudge Ben McKay for trying to go to greener pastures. Again, I air quote that because is Essendon the change that he needed? We'll see. But they don't have a stable defense right now. It's young, it's inexperienced, and it's not performing. Forward wise, Nick Larkey's one of the best full forwards in the game because with limited delivery, he still delivers. So I don't know. Again, I don't want to talk fully about North. Again, Saints, I give you the plaudits, you win, but was this the win you probably wanted? No, I think you look at North and you think 50 needs to be where you're at. Being under 50, it's a little unders what I thought was possible by this Saints team. Jackson Clare has himself a belter, fantastic game there. Hayes comes back from his injury, does really well. So again, Saints have some plaudits, but again, it's tough to watch this North team because and as you said, it's you gotta be a very diehard to sit through this because I don't see any relief coming anytime soon, unfortunately, which is really hard to say because you never like to see fans have to go through a no-win season potentially on this. So We moved to the MCG in an absolute cracker, but a game that disappointed for me. This disappointed me a little bit with how it turned out as the Melbourne Demons knock off the Cats 74-66. Again, I preface this as a Swans fan, you love it because the undefeated Cats go down and it leads to
So
the
good.
Swans taking the top. But I'm a little disappointed in the Cats. I honestly thought they would give the D's so much more troubles than they do. Hawkins, no goals. Cameron's, no goals. That's not something that happens very often.
Nah, definitely not, mate. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch too much of this game as I was out celebrating the win. We'll drink in some of that winner's piss, as we like to say, Donny, and geez, it was sweet. But yeah, didn't see too much of the game, but was very, very happy with the result, as you said.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. It was one of those where the Cats just never really got going again. I know the D's are one of the best defensive teams in the competition. I mean, Lever and May. I mean, it's hard to find one, let alone two great defenders. And May is absolutely in fuego right now. I don't think I've seen him play better footy than he has. And you got to admit, Bailey Fritch, they're starting to find some things. I'm still a little worried about their forward line. I'm not sure if Melbourne's forward line is consistent enough. Can they can they do enough with the defensive game? Absolutely. And the Cats kind of showed that um, they can stay with you offensively, but if the D shut them down just enough, this was never really a huge like leaded game. I mean, I if you look at the score line, this was one of those where neither team really took the D's never really did blow this game open like potentially you could have. The Cats always seem to find a way to notch it back or to take the lead to take the lead at times. So this was two really good footy teams going at it. Was it ideal conditions for footy? Absolutely not. Again, rain is not exactly conducive, especially with a wet ball and the way that the Sharon is made. But I still find games like this entertaining sometimes because it's who adapts quicker, who plays the conditions quicker. Sometimes can be just as much of a tactical decision as putting one behind the ball or any of the little coaching niches that anybody can do. So again, D's big win here. Kazaya Pickett with two goals in this game, looking fantastic. If he'd just stop launching at people and getting himself suspended, maybe he'd see himself a little bit higher up in some people's talks when it comes to being one of the better players on this D's team. So, and conveniently, my computer decides to have some fun when it comes to going back because I was looking at the score worm. So, jump out to Optus Stadium as the Essendon Bombers survive a scare from the Eagles 77-71. Harley Reid showing why he was one of the best in the country with the double don't argue in this game that I have to say was chef's kiss. That was fantastic to see Harley playing out. I did tip West Coast in this one, and I came close to getting it somewhat right. If West Coast just could have found a way to get a draw out of this, but Essendon a little too good. I know there was a little bit of controversy with Draper's little drive by when it comes to the Western Bulldogs on his podcast, and whether or not he got sat because of that is still kind of that fun little controversy. So I don't know if you would if you've heard any of that little controversy on that one, but
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
but Bombers doing what they do. Zach Merritt again. I gotta say, I tip my cap to Zach Merritt. He is playing absolutely fantastic footy right now. He's literally pulled that team onto his back and is doing everything that he can to help them there. Jakey Stringer and Peter Wright coming up big for them up forward, doing what they need to do. Parrish again getting a ton of footy, whether he's as impactful or not. Again, that's up for debate a little bit with me, but Bombers doing what they need to do. But I'm almost looking at his. I know that you guys discussed in your podcast, and I even said it. There was a lot of scare when it came to Sydney after they came really close with West Coast. I'm kind of looking at it going, it's a little bit even more impressive win by Sydney now because West Coast started their kind of good play because of that Swans game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you look at the stats in this game, like Essendon's top five players have dead set dominated. Langford's had six scoring shots, kicked three goals. Merritt, best man on the ground by so far. He's shortening Heen's lead at the top of the coaches' votes with another perfect 10. 29 touches, three goals. Like it doesn't get better than that. Peter Wright kicking goals, Stringer. That's Essendon's best players playing as well as they can, and they're just getting over the line against West Coast. They're definitely on the improve, which is good to see. As we said in regards to North, you never want to see teams too long down the bottom. And you're starting to see the light with West Coast. But yeah, the jury's still out on Essendon. What would they be? 5-2 now, I reckon.
Hmm.
They're finding a way to get the wins, but definitely not convincing. Be interesting to see how they go against the better sides.
It'll be fascinating to watch this S&M Bombers team again. You got to chalk up wins and you can. You got to get 4 points, and that's never easy to go to Optus Stadium and get a win. No matter how good Fremantle or West Coast do, it is never easy to go out west in the cauldron that it is because both teams fill it out when they play. So for Essendon to get a big win over West Coast in that particular game, that's an impressive win. So speaking of West Coast, but this one will go to the MCG as the hobbling, injury riddled Tigers fall to the Fremantle Dockers 103-49. And it's very interesting. Um, Richmond Twitter is all a tizzy over the last couple of days because I mean, they are losing their proverbial minds over the free kick count, which again, I love you, Richmond fans, but there's nothing in the rule book that says the free kick count has to be close because
Yes.
sometimes, and again, I say this with as much respect and love as possible, sometimes your team buggers up stuff a little bit more than other teams, and Richmond is notorious for this. I understand that sometimes there are missed calls. Okay. I agree with you. There are always missed calls. Is it as egregious as you think it is? Usually, probably not. But again, when you have humans calling games, humans make mistakes. Was this the reason you lost? Absolutely not. Your team is being held together with any adhesive that you can find because of all of the injuries that you have. Is this an impressive win by Fremantle? Yes. Going to the MCG and getting a 54-point win, that's impressive. Even over a Richmond team that, as I said, is being held together with any adhesive they can find in their toolbox. It's fascinating to me on this one. Again, Nat Fife with his great best game ever, and then is the sub in this one. A little surprising, but they
Yeah, I think
found a
I
way to
think
get the win on
that's
that one.
it's that's a good thing to see, in my opinion. He's an older
Hmm.
player. He's had a huge game, and then they put him on ice for a little bit. That's good management, in my opinion. And yeah, Frio's getting quite a lot right at the moment, but we've got him this week, so you obviously looked at it pretty close. But when they're giving Ryan the ball 39 times and Sarong's doing what he wants, it's they're going to be a hard team to stop. But Richmond don't have the cattle out there at the moment. How they beat us, I don't know. They just put everything together
They
on the
had better. They
day.
had they had they had a few of those injuries happened in that Swans game. Balta played, Hopper was playing, Taranto was playing. I,
Yeah,
I tell most people when it comes to it, Sydney didn't lose to this Richmond team. Sydney
yeah,
lost to Richmond pretty much, except for Dusty Martin and Dylan Grimes, pretty much at the fullest strength that they've been all year. So it's like
for sure.
it's not the same. Like I say that all the
Yeah,
time. If you put the Richmond team that is now, no Hopper, no Taranto, no Balta, no Lynch, they play Sydney now. Sydney probably wins by 50
yeah,
because of
for
that.
sure,
But it's the
for sure.
fact that Balta Lynch and several of their superstars were playing in that game. And I agree with what one person said. The ball bounced Richmond's way every single time in that game. And you don't mind it. I think it humbled the Swans a little bit because the
For
talk was
sure.
getting big because you beat the D's easily. You beat the Pies. There was a lot of, hey, look at the Swans now. I mean, yes, you had the Giants talk, but it was one of those where it's like that Richmond team it was a different Richmond team. It's not the one that's playing Fremantle in the last few rounds. It's a completely different side. When Liam Baker is one of your best percentage guys when it comes to possessions, that shows you how thin they are because no Hopper, no Taranto. I mean, Dusty, I love him, but he's not going to go through the middle as much as he was. He's getting, again, I've said this many times. Father Time is undefeated. They're eventually going to get to you. So.
Yeah.
But no, Knocker's just too good. That's going to be a fun matchup this weekend out west with Sydney and Fremantle because the midfield matchup's going to be fun. Does somebody tag Isaac Heaney? Does Rowe Bonham go to Sarong? How does Grundy do against Darcy? But Darcy may be hurt. Is it Luke Jackson? When does Jackson come in? When does Jackson come in? How does that defense handle the Hydra, as you guys say on your podcast, of Logan McDonald, Armadi, and Wicks and Wilbur after his game, and then how does Sydney handle with no Tommy McCartan? How do they handle Tracy and Frederick and
Giant
some yep
miss. Yeah,
Giamis yep. So it's that is going to be attack. That's going to be a fun one. I
for
cannot
sure.
wait for Friday night for sure. So we're jumping the gun a little bit. We'll come back to this round. We'll jump down to Marvel Stadium in the shocker of shocks as the Hawthorne Hawks. Yes, I'm saying this, ladies and gentlemen. The Hawks knock off the doggies 98-91, a 7 point win by Hawthorne. And Bulldogs land is losing their minds on this. I have a few doggies fans that I asked the question, is Bevo's job close to being over? And I had a friend put a GIF out there of literally, it was like a Simpsons thing with Bevo's head on a person on a railroad being driven out of town. So there are a few in Dougie's land that are kind of they're over Bevo that they want him to find the proverbial rail out of town. This is fascinating. Your thoughts on this because I look at this Dougie's list and go, why are you not winning some of these games? You're just so damn inconsistent.
Yeah, yeah, and I think if the Bullies lose this week, I reckon he will be gone. But they're good players are playing well. Trelaw's
Mhm.
playing well. Bailey Dale's in good form. Bontempelli, but they just cannot put it together. They got the forward line. They got Ugle Hagen and Norton and
Darcy.
everything's
Yeah.
there. Everything's there, but it's not clicking. And, that does come down to management. And, maybe there is something wrong there. It's funny. We've been thinking about, why Bontempelli hasn't re-signed and extended his contract. And when you're the skipper of the club, when that's not happening straight away, there's definitely something wrong in the chemistry with everything down there. There's been a lot wrong at board level for a long time. They've had reviews and all that type of stuff. And we're lucky enough at the Swans to be so stable there. And I think that flows down. So to make the comparison with the Bulldogs, it's definitely not right there. It doesn't feel right. They're not performing on ground. So yeah, there's just a little bit too much going wrong at the doggies, and it's danger signs there.
Well, and I'll say this, not to kind of completely flip it, but I got to give my plaudits to the Hawks because they're at the start of the
Yeah, definitely.
season. We thought it was going to be North and Hawthorne and daylight between them. They figured it out. Again, they're starting to get healthy. Will Day is finally starting to get back again. Are they 100% healthy? Absolutely not. You have a big game by German Impey has a fantastic game in this. You're starting to get performances from some of the unheralded guys for the Hawthorne Hawks. So I want to give my plaudits to Hawthorne. This wasn't just the doggies absolutely stinking it up because 7 point game. This was fantastic. But again, if you look at the resumes of these two teams and you look at the lists of these two teams, I mean, it should be doggies easily. But the Hawks find a way to do it again. Maybe Sammy Mitchell's finally got it through. Maybe his sprays have finally registered in this Hawks team. But I look at the Duggies and I just go, it seems like it's been mismanagement after mismanagement after mismanagement after mismanagement. Because I mean, we all know it. The board comes out and goes, we're a top four side. That's fantastic. That's great that you have confidence in your team. But then 5 games into the season, it's like Bevo went into rebuild mode. And it's just the proverbial puzzle pieces are not aligning because it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Caleb Daniels finding himself in the VFL week after week again. Is he what he was 2 or 3 years ago during some of the fantastic runs by the Bullies? Absolutely not. But is he a player that can probably do better than some of the guys that are playing? Absolutely. Again, I'm not at training, so I don't know all of this. But it's just this is a Bulldogs team that has baffled me all year because they have great games and then they have games that are absolute shitstorms. And I just don't know what to say. I'm with you. I hate seeing coaches fired in the middle of the season, but I think if the Douggies drop another one here this next week, I think Bevel's days are numbered. I think his pink slip comes quickly because the board has got it in their head that this is a top four side, and heads are going to roll. And I hate saying that. I really, really do. But unfortunately, this is an unacceptable result in Dougie's land. They'll probably let it go just the tiniest bit, but I don't think he has too many more lives. Unfortunately, not to use a cat reference for the dogs, but I had to go there. So, and last but not least, we'll jump up to the GABA and the carnage that was this game, because the Brisbane Lions get the win
Yeah.
79-45, a 34-point win. But I think everybody wants to talk. Four players go down for Brisbane in the first 10 minutes of this game, including one in the warm-up.
Yeah, unreal. And that who was it who came on as a sub?
Oh, the one kid that,
Answorth.
yeah,
Noah Answorth played in the twos, full game in the twos, went past Macca's on the way home, thinking he's done for the day, and then gets the call up for the game when yeah, I'm not too sure who did his calf in the warm up, but yeah, played the two games in 2 day in less than 12 hours, and
and had
yeah,
Macca's in
went all
between.
right as well. Yeah, exactly right. So no, but it was carnage there. You never like to see that. Lincoln McCarthy and Gardner both done ACLs, and there was one other injury as well, wasn't there?
It was a Starcevich
Which
calf strain in the warm-ups.
yeah,
Both Gardner
and
Gardner
McCarthy.
and McCarthy both with suspected ACLs. I haven't seen any confirmation. I need to. I haven't had a chance to look at the website to see. I know the injury report comes out tomorrow, and then Ainsworth is a concussion. And I find it interesting that
Yeah,
Ainsworth finally had happen. What I've been dreading potentially as a footy fan is the knee to the head in a marking contest. Ainsworth gets concussed. Do we see the potential for a suspension? I don't think so, because I think this is one of those where they'll finally use the footy accident. This was not intentional. Again, I try not to get into the MRO disaster that is the MRO. Maybe this is the American brain in me, but for me, when the league suspends somebody, I don't see the tribunal. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get how the league can suspend you and then you get to do some kind of court situation to see if they're right. And like, I'm so used to NFL goes, you're suspended 2 games. Okay. Like, literally
yeah,
that's it. Like, there's no discussion
sure.
over it. So it's it's one of the foreign parts besides the draft sometimes that can get really interesting
Yeah,
when it comes to it. So I, Brisbane did what they needed to do. Gold Coast again, they show that I have zero confidence in them outside of their home ground. I just don't. I mean, this is a Brisbane
yeah,
team that you should have capitalized and eaten up with 3 guys down and only 2 guys on the bench. You should have eaten this team up, and they don't come to perform. Like, it's frustrating. Is this Dimma's fault? Absolutely not. He's got to deal with the list that he has. Again, it's making his comment, 80% of my championship list is here. No, it's not. That
yeah.
is not 80% of your list. I will be shocked. I will be shocked if 2 or 3 players don't find their way out of the Gold Coast over this next offseason. I will be shocked if it doesn't happen. Lukosius already sounds like he's 1 foot out the door. And it's not him. It's not him that wants to make this. It's the team. I just don't think Lukosius fits into what Dimma wants to do. Dimma's throwing him around they're trying to find a peg for him to slot into, and it's just not fitting. So it will not surprise me if Lukosius finds his way out of the Gold Coast. And I think a talent like that, it's hard to see them leave. But this may be Dimma finally, I mean, chomping up and trying to get guys that he wants into the places. But again, Brisbane get the win. The injury tolls are starting to rip them apart. What was it? I think somebody said this is 4 ACLs this year already. It's
Yeah.
insane.
It's
And
funny where that's where they were so good last year, and the talk was, oh, the warmer weather up in Brisbane, no injuries, all this type of thing, and it's
mhm.
just a complete reversal. It's a lot of luck that goes into it, but that's what makes it a lot easier to make finals, make top four, win flags is keeping a healthy list. And yeah, if you get smacked with four injuries like that, it's very hard to rebound
Mhm.
from that. You know, they'll still win games, but I don't think they're the side that we saw last year.
No, I agree. And it's one of those that I think your run of luck kind of runs on a spinning like almost like a hamster wheel. Like you'll get that run where you're going really, really well, and then all of a sudden your fortunes change because as you said last year they had almost no injuries. Almost the entire season they had like one person the entire year. This year it's starting to stack up. It's a little bit like Richmond during their run in 2017. They were never
Mm.
hurt. Like everybody was healthy. And then 2000 and then a couple of seasons later, injury, 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 injury. So it's one of those you just time it right. It's almost like the Swans in 2022 compared to 2023. 2022, almost no injuries most of the season. Swans were really healthy. 2023, Reed goes down, and Heaney and different injuries. And sometimes that each year is a different roller coaster. And unfortunately, they're on the downturn. And for I could potentially see Brisbane not even making finals at this point because they've got four guys out with ACLs. I mean, and there's some of their better players. Gardner's not a bad player. Kitty Coleman's already down. Lincoln McCarthy has been that great third or fourth option for their forward line. So this is really going to take a toll on this Brisbane Lions team. And unfortunately, I think this could cost them finals, which is sad because this has been a Brisbane team that's been really, really good the last 5 seasons. But unfortunately, injuries have crept up on them. So that is all 9 games from this last round covered. We jump to the burning questions. This is going to be fun because I got to ask this. I kind of mentioned it off the top. We had our pseudo rivalry round this week, having the showdown. We had the Q Clash. We had the Sydney Derby. We had Collingwood v Carlton. I gotta ask this. I know that it's big up here in the States for rivalry rounds and some of like college sports and stuff like that. Would you be keen to see this maybe become a thing where we have the Western Derby, the Showdown, the Q Clash, the Sydney Derby, Carlton v Collingwood, maybe even Geelong Hawthorn, some of the big rivalries all played in one round?
Well, I don't know because there's a round for everything. So like throughout the year, there's this round, there's that round. You know, well, I don't mind it spread out a little bit, but we basically saw them, all this week, bar the WA Derby over there,
Hmm.
with Freo and West Coast. But I don't mind if it was probably spread out a little bit more. Keeps the average puncher probably a little bit more interested in the round. But look, if it did happen, I wouldn't really have too much of an issue with it either. But yeah, I wouldn't mind it being spread around a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. It was cool to see to see, like I said, four really big ones all in one round. It was kind of cool. But I agree with you. Plus, I think with all the Victorian teams, you've got so many different rivalries in there that it's almost impossible to get all of them in one round because you have some teams that have multiple teams that they have a rivalry with. So I'm with you on that one, but it would be interesting if they tried to pull that off because then I'm sitting here going, okay, what round is this? Because of all the different things on that one. So 100% with you on that. We jump to this may be a fun one for me. I gotta ask this: Are the pies are back to their best? Or are we still waiting for results? Because I'm kind of still on the fence a little bit with them because I had a few doubts on Carlton just because they've shown some vulnerabilities. I I don't know. Are the pies back?
Oh, not 100%. No, I'm still similar to you. They're on the fence. They're not quite dominating games, although they were pretty good against Port the other week. But as we saw, maybe Port's not as good as everyone think they are either with their performance they put out on the weekend. But look, they're starting to fire on a few more cylinders. They're probably, you know, on about half power, I reckon, at the moment. But I don't think they're back yet. Not yet.
I'm with you on this. I don't I just I'm still the jury's out for me. We're only 8 games in. They still haven't played some of the other better teams. Like they still haven't proved to me yet. I think they've played down to a couple of opponents and things like that. I'm fascinated to see how it goes. Are they closer than they were at the start of the season? Absolutely. I think they started to figure things out. I think I loved how early in the season Nathan Murphy was everything. They don't have Nathan Murphy, so and then now Nathan Murphy retires, and all of a sudden now they've started to figure out. I don't think it was one player. I think it's a little bit a loss of hunger, and I think I I'm hesitant because I know some people get very offended on this. I think Lee Matthews is right. I think they were celebrating that premiership a little longer than they probably should. I know Fly tried to kept telling us, no, he didn't. We're getting ready for da, 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 da. No, Fly. Your players were doing the exact opposite of everything that you were saying. I think they celebrated it too long and it cost them early in the season. And I think they're starting to kind of find it. But whether they get that 100% hunger back, it will be the question all year long because do they get punched? If they get punched in the mouth, will they have that fight back or not? I'm interested to see how that goes. So as I do every time when I know my co-host is a huge fan, so we'll talk a little bit of Swans here. We will throw it in. So the Swans end this round on the top of the ladder with a very healthy percentage. Um, how excited are you knowing that there's still Parker and Mills still to rejoin this team?
Yeah, it's bloody awesome, Donny. And probably a couple of weeks ago, you were thinking when we were battling, you weren't really thinking that Mills and Parker were still to come back. It wasn't what I was thinking, but when the tide starts to turn and we're playing some better footy, and then we've still got these guys to come back, it's really exciting. Is Parker best 22? It's going to be hard for him to work his way back into the side. I think he's had 31 in his first week back, 35 on the weekend. He might be primed to come back against Freo. It's always interesting at selection. We try so hard to get it right, but get it wrong every week. And then Millsy apparently had a bit of a setback with a
Hmm.
cheeky calf last week as well. So he's probably still at least a month away, you would say, month to
After
sort of
the
six
buys is
weeks.
what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. So
Yeah, so 4 to 6 weeks at least. But yeah, it's so exciting. Everyone's playing well in there. And when a top draft pick like Braden Campbell can't get in your side either, it shows that everything's pretty good at the Swannies and it's really exciting. And we're winning enough games. We're on top of the ladder, healthy percentage, as you say, and every lit thing looks bloody good at the moment. But as we know, Donnie, it's a very long season and a lot has to go right and a lot of luck has to go your way as well. Definitely not
mhm.
counting the chickens. We've been let down, not let down, but disappointed so many times throughout the years that you until we're there on that final Saturday, buddy, holding up that cup after the game, we don't even talk about it because they're so hard to win and there's a long way to go. But
Yeah.
I think we've got the ability to go far this year. That's for sure.
Nope, I'm 100% with you on that one. I remember having a discussion because somebody said, does Parker come in for the trip out west because he's playing well? And I threw up this idea, and I think a few people have liked it. Is honestly, you want to know what I would love to see is if Parker does come in, I think Parker comes in for Adams to give Adams a man to be able to manage Adams, but you still bring in a player that's very, very similar, can go forward. So I don't think it's a step back, and you can kind of see which of those two is going to get that final spot. It pushes Adams just a little bit. It lets him get a rest, but it also pushes him knowing that he's going to earn his way back in. And Parker gets your chance. Hey, here's your chance to say why you need to be at your top level. It's a select. I love selection crunches like this because it shows the depth of this team. And it's like, think about it. Laddams is actually doing really pretty well in the VFL. So if Grundy goes down, you do have that. And it's like you still have Joel, I think Joel Hamling, Aaron Francis, who's gonna come in most likely for Tommy Mack this week. There's selection issues. As a Swan supporter, you're going, it's a good problem to have at this point in the
Yeah.
season. It is a very and Gussie Sheldrick is still down sitting in the VFL too.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Look, I think we'll probably see a bit of a, mix around of the magnets. Obviously T-Mac out this week. I think Foxy probably goes back, and then whether you play someone else at the sub and maybe give Parks a, 60-70% game time. That's a possibility too.
Hmm.
But yeah, who knows? We always try get it, and we're always wrong. But I probably don't see either Hamling or Francis coming in. They're both around the same size. I was looking at this on the plane on the way home to see who we would bring in. They're around the same size, and you got the two boys up forward who we said Amos, and who's the other guy, Tracy as
Tracy,
well.
yep.
Two big boys up there. So Melican takes one, and then whether you bring in one of the other guys, or Rampy plays oversized, or same with Foxy. There's plenty of options there, mate. But yeah, it's a good crunch to have at selection, as you say.
Yeah, it's always good, and I'm one of those that I'd rather have to sit somebody and test them down in the VFL than to sit here and go, well, who do we put in because nobody's ready. So it's one
Yeah,
of those
exactly.
that if you're looking at the Swans list going through, there's plenty of selection headaches, but they're headaches that you don't mind because it means guys are playing really good football and that they want to be in the side. It's fantastic. I'm grinning a little bit just thinking about it for sure. So again, 8 games in, long season. You're going to need that depth. There's going to be injuries. It's impossible to go through an entire season with no injuries. So, but knowing that you've got two absolute guns sitting there in the VFL, ready to come back is a great one. So we'll end the burning questions with a little bit of a fun one. I have contender pretender type of on this, and we're going to do it in two different ways. We're going to do all of the teams just outside the eight. We're going to do contender pretender. Can they make finals? So contender, they can make finals. Pretender, they won't. And then when we get to the eight, contender pretender, can they win the flag? So
Sure.
we'll go
Okay.
on this. So we'll start off with the St. Kilda Saints contender pretender. Can they make finals? Can they make finals? Contender pretender.
Pretender, for sure.
Yep. I'm with
A few too many injuries. Yeah, has it got some players out? Don't think so. Don't rate them.
yep, I'm with you on that one. I
Outperformed themselves last year.
Yeah, well, I don't see a lot of the right now. The eight max I can see is three teams dropping out, and I think there's at least two teams ahead of St. Kilda on that one that I think can make finals. I think max you see two teams fall out. Who those two teams are right now is hard to kind of say right now, but I'm with you. I think pretender when it comes to making finals. Brisbane Lions, I don't think I have to think about this one. Probably pretender for me because I think the injuries are going to start knocking this team back. I think they're going to start losing some games. They fall back. They'll push a few teams. They may knock a finals contender back a little bit with a win, but I think their injuries are going to keep them from making finals this year. So I have pretender for the Lions.
Yeah, agree.
All right.
100%.
Fun one for us. Adelaide Crows, contender pretender to make finals.
Uh Pretender still, I think. Too up and down, too inconsistent. They get an injury to, an Isaac Rankin or a Dawson, and I think they're shot. So Pretender.
I'm gonna say for making finals contender because like I said, I still think there's a possibility of at least two teams falling out of the eight that are in the eight now. And I think Adelaide's starting to find they're starting to find a groove. I'm with you. A Dawson or a Rankin go down and it could throw this team for a loop. But if I just assume that they're going to stay healthy, they're starting to find their mojo. They've won three of their last four. They just beat Port Adelaide, who's a team ahead of them with injury. It'll be interesting. I'm going to say contender for making finals because they showed last year they can put up offense. Their defense has been a little bit better than I expected. So I'm going to say contender for the Crows to make finals. Doggies.
Pretender. Pretender. So much wrong. So much wrong. They
Yeah.
nearly want to see Bevo go because I don't know. They stole that flag against us, and then it's like he's nearly had a free trip through. Yeah, they made the granny in that year, the COVID year that didn't even count, but just so even inconsistent both sides of that. It's unreal. But yeah, Pretender.
I'm saying pretender because there's I'm getting the vibe that there's some Dougie's fans that almost they want him they almost want to see the team fail to get Bevo out to maybe to be able to see if they can right this proverbial ship on this one. I'm with you. Pretender, Gold Coast Suns.
Oh, pretender, pretender. Yeah, Dimmer's still got some work to do there. He's got plenty of time. But
There's
do,
there
but do the Gold Coast have plenty of time? You know, it's a funny
funny
position
thing to
he
think
finds
about.
himself in. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you, Pretender. I think they can win at home. They can't win. They've struggled winning on the road. I just that you're not going to make finals with 11 wins. You got to get 15 to 16 wins. I just don't see it happening. I am Pretender on this one. The last one, this is probably almost a slam dunk of the group. Contender, Pretender, Collingwood making finals.
no, yeah, contender. They'll make finals. They'll come good.
Contender for sure. I think they make finals, and I think they even push to jump up and maybe if they can get on a roll, potentially push for top four if things play out the right. So, all right, contender pretender now for these eight finals teams. Who is in the flag talk? Okay, Carlton Blues. Are they a contender or pretender to be a flag contender?
Yeah, they're. I don't know. They're probably the most interesting one on the list.
Hmm.
They've dropped their fair share of games. What have they dropped? 3 games now. Yeah, I still think at their best they're very good, and their midfield's just stacked. Like big fan of Sammy Walsh, Cripper in there. Um, Maybe still a year away. Pretender.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say pretender because I still think, unfortunately, it was called out a little bit this weekend. Is Charlie Curnow needs to be at his best for this Carlton team to be good
Yeah,
because he needs to draw. He needs to draw the defenders to the point where in his secondary efforts were a little lackluster this week, which is if I'm a Blues fan, it's frustrating because he's an athletic beast. Is he maybe worried about doing an extra effort and getting a soft tissue injury? I completely understand that. But in a game where you're 2 meters from the ball and you have a chance to put some pressure on and maybe get a turnover and he just I'm over. Like that's frustrating as a fan because you don't want to see that. I'm gonna say pretender right now because until I see more out of him, I think they're almost a little bit um they're Mackay Kern O2 focused. There's no third option. And their crummers can only do so much, especially if you can blanket those two and take them out of the game, that there goes their offense. So I mean, I know Crippa can go forward, which is awesome. Walsh has been fantastic. They're 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 a team though that can be got out back. So I'm gonna say pretender right now. I want to see some more. Fort Adelaide, contender pretender.
pretender. They're fair way off it.
The Rosie injury, I think, has made them a full pretender for me. I've went back and forth with a few of them. Are they still the flat track bullies? I think they've played better against some teams than some people think, but right now they're playing to form that they can beat the teams below them, but the teams above them give them trouble. So unfortunately, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. Pretender, Frio.
Pretender, very easy. Although good win on the weekend. I just don't think they've got the top end talent to do it consistently, forward of the ball especially.
Yeah, contrary to the D's that can win, I think can win a championship with their defense. I don't know if Fremantle can win it with their defense. Again, Alex Pierce and Luke Ryan are a great combination down back, but my worry is too inconsistent going forward. So on that one, I'm with you, but I think flag, yes. When it comes to making finals, I think they'll make finals. I think they're good enough to do that. A
Yeah.
fun one on this one, the Bombers.
Ah, yeah, pretender as well. Far too inconsistent. You got to be able to do it against the big dogs. They tend to find a way to get beaten in the big games. So yeah, pretender for me.
Yeah, a little bit too much. I think they're on the right track, but they gotta stay consistent and they gotta stay healthy. If they do, then they'll be a test. I think they'll make finals. I just don't think they've got enough to test the top four. So All right, Melbourne Demons, contender pretender for flag.
Pretender, no forward line. Simple. That's why they've gone out in straight sets the last 2 years, and that's why they'll continue to win games of footy, even make top four. But you've got to have those guys to be able to perform forward of the ball. Pretender.
I'm a push on this one. I'm a push because I see everything that you say. Defense wins championships. They've shown they can do it before. It's the midfield. It's less about the forward line, but more about the midfield for me. Because if Petraka and Oliver can dominate, I think you can kick one going forward. If Gone is playing well, if Viney is playing well, that you can kick one of them forward, and it becomes a little bit of a matchup problem. And can Keziah Pickett stay on the damn ground? If Keziah Pickett can stay on the ground, they've got it. Because when he's played, they've played well. When he's been suspended, they've had issues. And I hate linking one player to a team's destiny, but Keziah Pickett has been that this year. When he's been suspended, they've played lackluster. When he's been on the ground, they've played pretty well. I'm a push on this one. I think they are, but I do worry that they don't have that talisman full forward to let Fritsch and Pickett and some of their smaller forwards kind of have a little bit more space. So I'm a push. I'm not 100%. I'm 50-50 in between the two. So I'm a push on this one. GWS Giants.
Yeah, contender. They can win it. They went deep last year. I think that's matured them a lot. They've got, they got ability all over the field. You got Hogan kicking goals. You got, Himmelberg behind the ball, Sam Taylor behind the ball, and the midfield speaks for itself. So contender.
I'm 100% with you on this one. They're super dangerous, super talented. Tommy Green going down early in that game kind of did, like I said, it messed up the midfield. They have to be able to hold on as long as he's out. I think they have enough talent. They're deep, they're quick, they move it. If conditions play well, I think they win enough games. They'll be a top four side. I am with you on this one. Geelong Cats.
Yeah, somehow a contender again somehow. You can see with the Swannies like how we've done it and our young kids coming through, but Geelong's done it a different way and they've turned it around this year and yeah, it's impressive to see. You don't know how they do it all the time, but yeah, you need to get Hawkins in form. You need to get Cameron back kicking goals, and then they're a very good footy side contender.
Yeah, I've never stayed into the too old, too slow type of situation because footy can be one of those that a footy brain can make up for some athleticism sometimes. I'm with you. I think the cats at full strength when they get Dangerfield back are going to be extremely dangerous, especially with their makeshift midfield has played really, really well. I mean, Parfit in there, Bruin in there, Bose, Max Holmes, they get it done. They're one of the best defensive teams in the entire competition. And when you've got Cameron up forward with Hawkins, you're a deadly forward. And they just got Gary Rowan back, which will help. That gives them even more speed going forward, which is a scary thought process when it comes to trying to cover Geelong with Brian Myers and his funky kicking style, passing it all over the field. So it'll be interesting. I like the Cats are going to be they're going to be there when the whips are cracking for sure. And last but not least, our favorite, the Sydney Swans, contender pretender. I don't think I have to ask, do I?
Nah, you don't, mate. We can win it for sure. I think we've had the experience of a lost grand final, and I think you can't beat experience. It's one thing to put in your kit bag. There's so many guys who would have learnt from that, and we're just starting to put it all together now. Guys in form, young guys got between 80 and 120 games in their sweet spot. We've got superstars. All over the ground. And I think our forward line's underrated. Everyone says we've got no forward line, but that's just people who don't watch the Swannies close enough. There's a forward line there, and we can kick goals. So, yep, contender.
Honestly, I think we have a forward line that's unpredictable because you just don't know who's going to bob up. I mean, if you look at this season, never has been two consecutive games of one person being the dominant person. Logan McDonald has the game against the Pies. Armadi has the game against the Hawks. Wilbur has his game against GWS. Sammy Wicks has his game. So it's like it's one of those. you just don't know who to cover because you have three talls. Most teams don't have three tall defenders, so one of them is going to get loose. McLean's even had himself a couple of belters along with pitch hitting in the ruck. And you look at it, Tommy Papley still hasn't 100% got back to his best. So think about this. This is a Swans team again. I don't even think they still haven't hit 100% clicking yet, which is scary to think if you look at this team that they have 147%. They've only lost one game, like we said, to a Richmond team that is not technically on the park right now. This is a scary Sydney side, and you add to it, you have a better ruckman than they had in 2022. No, I love Tommy Hickey. I love Ruck Jesus so much, but we have Ruck Jesus 2.0 with Brody Grundy. It's an upgrade. Let's be honest. It's an upgrade. You add some experience with Taylor Adams. You add some experience with James Jordan. You add some experience with Joel Hamley. He may not be on the top side, but he gives experience to let some younger guys get more time in the VFL. This is a different Sydney side than 2022. They're older, they're more experienced, and I think they're deeper. So I'm with you 100% contender in this. Health is, I mean, it's the main thing with everybody. The healthier you can stay your list, the better you're going to be. The less games that you lose, the better. So that's it for burning questions. We jump to the part I kind of take over the podcast just the littlest bit. My apologies for those that don't always like hearing this, but we'll go to my team of the week. We hop on to the defenders, starting off with the fullback line. Melbourne's Stephen May. Whoops, I forgot to change this. I bet I did. I did. Yep. Let me grab my notes. Live podcasting, ladies and gentlemen.
At its best.
Totally forgot to write this down because I'm sitting here going, wait, Blake Acres was not one of my wingers. What's going on here? Okay, so we'll start off with the defenders. Grabbing my list here. Braden Baynard of the Collingwood Magpies, Dane Rampy of the Sydney Swans, and James Sicily of the Hawthorn Hawks will be our fullback line, and the halfback line sees Zach Guthrie of the Geelong Cats, Luke Ryan of the Fremantle Dockers, and Dane Zerko of the Brisbane Lions. Through the ruck, we have who do I have here? Oh, it would be Max Gawn of the Melbourne Demons. In the centers, we see Nick Dacos of the Collingwood Magpies, Marcus Bontempelli of the Western Bulldogs, and Hayden Young of the Fremantle Dockers. On the wings, he's Bailey Williams of the Western Bulldogs and Jack Sinclair of the St. Kilda Saints. And the forward line, we see Harry Mackay of the Carlton Blues, Will Hayward of the Sydney Swans, Darcy Wilson of the St. Kilda Saints at the half forward line. Full forward line, we'll have Jack Williams of the West Coast Eagles, Essendon, Josh Tracy of the Fremantle Dockers, and Connor McDonald of the Hawthorn Hawks. On the bench, we see Timmy English of the Western Bulldogs, Nick Newman at the defender. The midfielder is James Rowbottom of the Sydney Swans, and the bench forward is Kyle Langford of the Essendon Bombers. My apologies. I had to read it off my notes, so it was a little bit awkward on that one. So I know a lot of names in a lot of different places. Thoughts on the team of the week?
Sorry, what was that?
I said your thoughts on the team of the week.
Oh, yeah. No, but it was very good, mate. Good to see Wilbur in there. The Great Dane back in there too. And, the likes of Merritt and all those guys are getting good reward for effort, mate. What an honor to be in Donny's team of the week.
Yeah, a little. I focus enough a little bit on goal scored, so sometimes you'll see some names that are a little bit funky compared to some on that one, but it's always fun. And then we'll go to the power rankings again. My homage to the start of this podcast at fourth and long with his power rankings. We'll start off again. I do the last 5 games of the year, kind of win streaks, different things like that. So there's going to be a few names that are going to throw some people off. So I know this is going to be fun. At 5, the Adelaide Crows. At 4, the Essendon Bombers. At 3, the Collingwood Magpies. At 2, the Melbourne Demons. And at 1, the Sydney Swans are the number one team in the power rankings there. So Alrighty, we did through that. Now that Coach Hess has had his part of the podcast, we go to the fun part. We're still very early again. Teams haven't come out, injury lists haven't come out, but we got to tip. We have to tip this next round. A fascinating round of footy still to play here. So we jump to it. Thursday night footy, 8v4, Carlton v Melbourne. Who do you like in this one?
I think the Blues might bounce back, back them on the G. Melbourne had a tough contest in the wet, so I'll back the Blues.
I'm gonna go the D's on this one. I think with what I saw from Charlie Curnow, unless I see a lift on this one. Stephen May will completely take him out, which will get him frustrated. Harry Mackay, Lever will let him run up. Lever will then sit back. They'll bomb it to Charlie Curnow. Lever will get intercept marks. They won't, they'll have trouble. They'll get the few crumbing goals. Durden will find a way to put on a few goals. But I think the D's will do just enough damage to be able to do that. Plus, Max Gone, I think, will neutralize Pitnet a little bit, which I think actually will help the D's. So I'm going to tip the D's in this one. I think they've got just enough offense to win on that one. A fun one down at GMHBA Stadium. I hate this at the same almost the same time as the Swannies match. Cats, Port Adelaide Power. Who do you like in this one?
Cats absolutely smoke him.
Yeah, I don't think Cats easily, but I think the loss of Connor Rosie will really hurt this one. I think the back line, I think Jeremy Cameron and Tommy Hawkins may have a field day with a back line that is got exposed a little bit this last round against the Adelaide Crows. I like the Cats in this one. Out Fremantle and Optus Stadium as the Dockers host our beloved Swans. I'm going to tip the Swannies in this one. Normally, I'm a little leery. Sometimes going west is a little bit leery, but I think the kicking and the space on the giant Optus Stadium, I think will help Sydney's kicking game. I think we'll really have to see who does Pierce take. Does he take McDonald? Does he take Armati? Does he take McLean? And can one of the other two that doesn't have Pierce on them find a way to step up and put in that 3 or 4 goal response? Can Papley find his way, get a couple of goals, and get some confidence and some form back into him? I like the Swannies in this one.
Yeah, Swanee's better than around that. Very, very generous odds. I feel I'm not really a betting man on the footy, but that is generous, and we're flying. And selection will be an interesting point to look out for.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated to see how that goes. Do we see a Parker and who does Parker come in for? Like I said, I threw up the idea of maybe resting Adams, considering he's played 4 games in a row, and having Parker come in there, just have that almost rotational spot between the two of them, just so then to keep the young side going. But we'll have to see. Interesting one at Utah's Stadium down in Tasmania as the Hawks host St. Kilda. Fascinating one on this one. Who do you like?
I think the Saints down there, Hawks through everything, perfect conditions, that type of thing at Etihad, against the Doggies. So I'll tip the Saints.
I'm going to tip the Saints, but this is one of those I'm going to keep an eye on because I think the Hawks got some positive momentum. Saints coming off that game against North, will they come out a little bit flat? Again, I think another one where everybody's going to tell them you should win this one, and sometimes that can lead to an underwhelming performance. Tipping the Saints, but I think the Hawks are going to push in that one. A fun one at Marvel Stadium is the Bombers host the Giants. Giants now having to play without Tommy Green in this one. Does Essendon cause an upset, or does GWS right the ship?
I think they'll probably right the ship. How many weeks have they said for Tom Green?
I have
They
not.
did say minor.
I haven't seen anything on that one. My best
Yeah,
guess is probably at least a week or two, just because if as long as it's not a syndesmosis,
it's
a
not.
couple of weeks, just to be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tip the Giants.
Yeah, I'll tip the Giants on this one. I think it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. I think Riccardi, Hogan, and Toby Green needs to find his way. Thankfully, he didn't burn the Swans. I think he could potentially burn Essendon on this one. I like the Giants in this one. Fun one, MCG, Richmond v. the Western Bulldogs. Can Richmond cause Bevo to get his pink slip?
Look, probably not this week. Doggies will bounce back. I think Hawthorn did play pretty well against the Dogs, to be fair, but I reckon they might right the ship.
I'm
Tip
gonna
the Doggies.
I'm gonna tip the doggies, but I'm saying it right now. It will not shock me if Richmond win this one. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. I don't know why, but it will not shock me if Richmond win this game. I'm gonna tip the doggies, but Richmond will not shock me if they knock this one out of the park. A fun one up in Darwin as the Gold Coast Suns host North Melbourne. Sunnies for me. This could be potentially, this is one of those that does Gold Coast take North Melbourne lightly? This is the possibility. I don't know what. I have this strange feeling North may be in this up to their elbows in this one. I don't know what it is, but I just have this feeling will Gold Coast take North lightly? A young team, still learning some things, some bravado a little bit. Do they take that bravado and does it bite them? Suns, my tip, North sneaky.
I think you might just be building that narrative in your head, mate. I think the Suns will absolutely smoke them.
I gotta find a way to make it intriguing. Come
True,
on.
true.
The fascinating one. I can already hear the whinging beginning as Collingwood host the West Coast Eagles at Marvel Stadium. I'll say that
Yeah,
again.
at
Collingwood
Marvel.
hosting
Yeah.
West Coast at Marvel Stadium. Under the Marvel Stadium roof, Collingwood will be way too good, but it'll be fun to watch the Eagles on this one. Harley Reid versus Nick Dacos. That'll be a fun matchup to watch. Pies too good, too deep. They beat the West Coast Eagles, but again, I can already hear the whinging already.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. Uh, yeah, Pies get it done easy, mate.
Alrighty, last but not least, an intriguing one. Adelaide Crows, Brisbane Lions. Perfect time to get the Lions if you're the Crows. I like the Crows in this one at home. They play really well. Brisbane, absolutely, absolutely injury riddled. I think worst possible time for Brisbane to go on the road to a Crows team that would love the confidence boost of beating off Brisbane. I like the Crows in this one.
Yeah, I think the Lions face a bit of adversity with injuries and that, and I just don't rate the Crows. So a bit of an upset there for me, Lions, even with the injuries.
Interesting. The talent's there. I don't begrudge that tip at all. Like I completely get that one completely on that one. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it. All 9 games tipped. Again, I want to be able to do this when I get podcasters on. I want to let them chat a little bit. So, Deebs, I want you to tell us just a little bit more about True Bloods and how to get a hold of the podcast for any Swans fans that don't know about it. I don't know how because everybody that I know that's a Swan supporter love the podcast.
Thanks, Donny. Yeah, look, we put content out for the Swannies faithful because it's a big media bias down here in Melbourne. And we struggle to get talked about our boys, the Swannies, mate. So you can find us over on Instagram, over on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter at True Bloods Podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all good podcast providers. So jump on those platforms. Give us a like if you're a Swannies man. If you're not, have a listen. See, some people still do enjoy the pod. So thanks very much for having us on, mate, and always a pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. And I know that we had planned on having Mads on the podcast for sure, but unfortunately something popped up. So we'll cross our fingers that maybe we can get Madison Clark on an episode a little bit later on in the year. It'd be great to get the big man on the pod because I love his enthusiasm for footy and especially the Swans for sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, keep an eye out, more footy coverage still to come. We have the VFL review here in the next week or so, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, AFL coverage for sure, along with Sandful and Waffle for sure. So that's going to do it. We will see you again with more footy coverage very, very soon.